Snyderman, and this is Conversations on Creating to Heal. And today I'm really happy to be speaking with Erin May Lewis in Wichita, Kansas, a mountain dulcimer player and teacher. Her story is using her music to get through Hodgkin's lymphoma at age 20. So welcome, Erin.
Thank you. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, so for people who don't know you, maybe you could talk a little bit about yourself and if you have a mission or purpose for the kind of music that you do, if you can share that too.
Yeah. So I got a mountain dulcimer for my 7th birthday, and it has been a huge part of my life ever since. And so I find myself now teaching a lot and very passionate about passing on folk music traditions. And I love the mountain dulcimer because it's really easily accessible as a first instrument. And then some people like me will stick with it for their whole lives, and other people will use that as sort of an entry point into creating art and playing music. But I teach people of all ages from 7 to 80. And it's just a really powerful thing. I think music has always been an important part of my life.
That's great. That's such a neat thing to be able to share that with all ages. I love that.
I do too.
I want to talk a little bit about your story. So what was it like to be diagnosed with and then to have to deal with that journey of getting Hodgkin's lymphoma at such a young age?
You know, I was sort of in summer break between college, and I had actually been really working on my health and trying to deal with some chronic migraines and sinus infections that have been going on. And then I was actually on a camping trip with my family, and then a couple of lymph nodes in my neck popped up really swollen. And it was kind of a process of going to a doctor who said, oh, it's probably nothing to be worried about, but let's do a scan. And then, well, we should probably do a biopsy. So by the time I actually received the diagnosis, I had about 3 weeks of people saying it could be cancer. And so I processed, I think, a lot of it even before I got the phone call saying you've been diagnosed with cancer. For the first, 3 or 4 weeks, I wouldn't actually say cancer. It was convenient that Hodgkin's lymphoma isn't cancer. It was something else. And so I only called it Hodgkin's or Hodgkin's disease or Hodgkin's lymphoma instead of even using the cancer word. But I had about 9 months of chemotherapy treatments. And after the first treatment, when I kind of figured out what it was going to be like, I started bringing my dulcimer with me every time. So it was like an open chemo room, and everyone who's receiving chemotherapy that day is all in the room together. And we have these really comfy recliners, and most people are sitting very quietly. And I was by far the youngest patient. Because I was 20, I was considered an adult, but most adults who get cancer are 60 or 70 years old. And so to begin with, just by that, I was kind of standing out, and my whole family would come to treatments all together. And so it was like all of these very quiet people sitting in their recliners, and then my whole family would kind of come in, and I asked
but honestly, they probably really enjoyed that ability to, see what you guys are experiencing and the joy that they would get from you playing the music. I can't imagine. Did you get feedback from people?
Well, so when I first started, I asked the nurses, is this okay? Because it's gonna make more noise than there is in here if I sit and play my instrument. And I told them to let me know if it was bothering anyone. And about 4 treatments in, the nurses said, oh, Erin, we get requests for chemo on Erin days. So that people will be there when you're there to play the music. And it was, it's one of those things that I feel like became a lot bigger than me. But my original intent was just something for me to take my mind off of getting sick kind of instantly. Some people don't get sick from chemo until a couple days later.
Mm-hmm.
as soon as they started my IV, I started feeling rough. And so it was like, I'm going to sit here for 2 or 3 hours and I need something to occupy myself. And playing music was a way of taking my mind off of all of that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in hospital with infusions, and the only thing that I could look to was singing. So it was a similar
Yeah.
experience, and that power of music is transformative. So
Yes.
talk a little bit about how, as you were going through, you're using your dulcimer. Are you writing your own songs as well, or are you playing standards? Like, did your journey inform how you created?
I was playing primarily traditional music and lots of hymns and things that were familiar. And
Yeah.
I think so. I wasn't composing my own music, but I think that all of my arrangements and all of the ways I approached it deepened. So instead of it just being like from a kind of music theory, what can I do with this and what order should I put things in, it started becoming this like outpouring of what I was feeling and experiencing. And it was a lot more of just letting my hands be on my instrument and whatever comes out, instead of it being this thing that I was like really thinking about every note and planning all of my arrangements. And so I think that it definitely shaped the way the arrangements were coming out, in part because I just didn't have as much mental capacity to arrange in the ways that I previously had.
Yeah, you're going through, right. Explain a little bit for people who may not know what kind of symptoms, or what is it like day to day to deal with something like Hodgkin's lymphoma?
So the Hodgkin's lymphoma itself actually didn't make me feel sick at all, but the chemotherapy treatment and the steroids that were a part of that treatment definitely had a huge impact on my body. So for me, it started as like a really intense migraine that would last for 2 or 3 days. And then that would be followed by nausea and fatigue and muscle aching and just feeling like it was like I felt like I had the flu, but I wasn't necessarily throwing up all of the time. The anti-nausea drugs have improved, and so I wasn't constantly throwing up, but I felt like I had the flu for about 10 days, and then I would have 4 days of feeling good, and it was time to start all over again.
You must have felt so grateful to be able to find something that you could process and take some of that away. It's not that the illness goes away, but at least for my experience, when I'm in that place of joy, that's what I focus on, you know?
Right. When I'm playing music, or even when I was listening to music, because steroids also cause crazy insomnia. And so it would be like 3 in the morning and I'm wide awake for no apparent reason. And I would be listening to music, and it was as long as I was playing or listening, I wasn't focused on how I was feeling. So I always like to make sure that I say, at this point, I'm an 11-year cancer survivor, and I am through treatments, and I have very little risk of having recurrence or anything. So
congratulations.
Celebration at the end.
That's such a light at the end of that tunnel. That is so hopeful. So I want to invite you to share a piece of your music, something that might have particular meaning along your journey, and then talk about why you're sharing that.
Yeah. So I actually found this song first as a poem. I just read the lyrics to it. It's called How Can I Keep From Singing? So I wanted to share the lyrics as I first saw them, and then I arranged it instrumentally for the mountain dulcimer, because the dulcimer has always kind of been my voice. My life flows on in endless song. Above earth's lamentation, I hear the sweet, though far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It finds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the joys and comforts die, the Lord my Savior liveth. What though the darkness gather round, songs in the night he giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, all to that refuge clinging, Since Christ is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? I lift my eyes, the cloud grows thin. I see the blue above it, and day by day this pathway smooths, since first I learned to love it. The peace of Christ makes fresh my heart, a fountain ever springing. All things are mine since I am his. How can I keep from singing?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I almost cried that time reading the darkness and Songs in the Night, because it's just, that's how my journey has felt.
That's so special when you can find and relate to a piece of poetry like that. And it sounds like it inspired you to share what you're going to share.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to point the camera down to my instrument now so that you can see the dulcimer.
Lovely. Thank you. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel very at peace. That one makes me feel calm and a little bit renewed as well. It leaves me with some hope.
Yes. And I recorded it on an album called Honest Songs of Hope. That was a duet album I did with my friend Joshua Messick, and we both had completely different kinds of seasons of darkness. His was more relational and mine had been physical. And together we recorded an album of all of our favorite hymns that had brought us hope during those seasons of darkness.
Well, before we go, I'm sure that you, along your journey, have picked up some life lessons, something that's helped you, either your own mantras or affirmations, something that you turn to, that maybe something going through something similar, whether it's illness or hardship or adversity, can benefit from.
I think the thing I would say is don't be so caught up in what you can do, but in being. Be present and be okay with simply being in the world.
What a great lesson and words to live by.
Yeah,
you are
keep coming back to that.
Yeah, it's always wild, isn't it? It's the things that we know in our hearts, but it's our hardest lesson sometimes to actually take to heart.
Right. Sometimes I think I've already learned this lesson. Why do I keep forgetting it? But
yeah, you're just relearning it. But thank you very much, Erin, for coming on to Conversations on Creating to Heal.
Thank you, Lisa.